What's up, y'all? Sparta here. Um, I want to do a comparison video between the LG G7 and the LG V30. Now, as you guys know, the LG V30 was one of my favorite phones of last year, right next to the Note 8, and I still use this phone a lot, and obviously because it's one of the two phones I can use a lot, but it's whatever. This isn't going to be a full-on versus video. I just want to compare the difference between the G7 and the V30 as far as which one has a lot of different things compared to the other one and what has changed over the past few months, I guess. So, G7, Snapdragon 845, 4 gigabytes of RAM, 64 gigabytes of internal storage, has a notch. I think it's an 18.9. I don't know the aspect ratio, but it's a wonky aspect ratio. IPS LCD display. This has OLED, obviously. Both have always-on displays. The V30s does get brighter, but obviously that's because it's an OLED panel, so it could display brighter pixels without necessarily having to light. Without a backlight and stuff like that. What else? On the back here, you got dual 16 megapixel cameras on the G7 with the f1.6 and I believe f1.7 aperture. On the V30, sorry about my shattered lens, but you also have a dual camera setup, a 16 and a 13. The 13 megapixels f1.8, I think, and the main shooter is f1.6. Both have a dual camera setup of a wide and regular field of view cameras, and those are obviously my preferred dual camera. That's my preferred dual camera setup. You have an 8 megapixel camera on the front here, non-wide angle lens, but for some reason it still comes out pretty wide. Like it doesn't look that far off. A lot of people have been saying, "Oh, the V30, the G7 doesn't have the wide angle lens anymore," and I'm like, And when I'm like putting them at pretty much the same arm's length, the G7 doesn't look, it looks a bit wider than it does on the fucking V30. And that's just something that I just wanted to note. I think this is an f1.8 aperture one, and I think this is f2.1 aperture with the front camera on the V30 compared to the G7. I think this is a 6.1 inch display. This is a 6-inch display. I don't know about the screen to body ratio or anything like that. I don't really pay attention to that. It doesn't matter to me. What else? Let's talk audio, which if you're a V-Series fan, you know audio is one of the staples of the V-Series. And with the G7, LG has improved audio quite a bit. Like, it still has the hi-fi quad DAC and stuff like that. But give me a second. Let me plug in some headphones into each of these. And as you guys can see on the bottom, the headphone jack is on the G7. I don't know why I said that like Yoda. And the headphone jack's on the top on the V30. There is a couple of nice things I like to note. When you plug in your headphones into your G7, it will like do a little bit of a notification right there and say hi-fi. That's just something that's a very nice touch. It's very subtle, but it's something that's cool. It's neat, to say the least. So I mainly plugged headphones in because I'm able to get to the settings of the hi-fi DAC. I have to have headphones plugged in. As you guys can see, it's pretty like stark on the V30. It's just your volume slider, whether or not you want the hi-fi DAC on, your presets, and the volume level for each of your ears. On the G7, I don't know why that turned off. On the G7, you get normalized volume, which basically makes it so that volume normalizes across each and every track you play rather than it being low on one track and high on another and stuff like that. You get a full equalizer, so if you want to fine-tune your settings, I don't see a custom one, but I believe you can do that. You could choose what type of equalizer you want. Say you want heavy bass, you can set it to heavy bass and stuff like that. You get DTS:X 3D surround sound. So basically what this does, you could choose to have it be wide. You could have it so that every sound that comes out comes to the front of you, or you could have it be side to side so audio separates from left to right in a nice way. I do like this quite a bit. I don't use it for every track, but it's something that's very nice. You do still get your digital filters and your presets that you get with the V30, but it's just something that's very nice for them to have included that. It's just something that's cool, I guess. So I guess let me take those out. I do prefer the headphone jack on the bottom as well. I have been getting confused as of late as to which phone I'm using. Sometimes when I take it out from the bottom, I think it's my V30 for whatever reason, because I'm so used to the headphone jack being at the top. But it's just something that I just got used to over time. Speaker quality is leaps and bounds better than the V30s on the G7. So I guess I'll just play a video rather than playing someone else's material as if I'm like trying to steal their shit, but whatever. My videos. I'll just play my unboxing, I guess. What's up, y'all? Sparta here, and I got a little something for you guys that is, I assume, is a anticipated unboxing, and that is... Watch me get a copyright strike from my own right channel. That's how shit... And now I'll just make it seem odd. A little something for you guys that is, I assume, is a as you guys can hear, unboxing, and that is... As you guys can hear, the speaker's a bit more tinny. Maybe that's just the audio that's coming from whichever phone I was using to record. It was probably the V20. I don't know why that was. Is this thing right here. And even if I put... And I'll just make it seem awkward. Put the phone on the table itself, the sound doesn't get any wider or anything like that. Whereas on the G7... Now in my last video, I did indeed say that it does get fuller and louder. I'm giving up my Note 8 to get the G7. And it overall just sounds better, in my opinion. And a lot of reviewers said that this speaker is second to a lot of like dual stereo front-facing speakers. I tend to agree. It just sounds very nice. It's just something that I'm like perplexed that HTC or somebody didn't do something like that. It's just crazy that LG thought to make the frame of the phone a resonant chamber. It's just crazy to me that they were the only ones to think of something like that. But next, I guess I'll just talk about battery life. Battery life on the G7, I can't necessarily say is good or bad because I've only had the phone for 2 days, and it takes more than that time for the battery to normalize and get used to how you use your phone. So I'll just wait to give a super final verdict. But overall, it's been pretty good. Standby time isn't. I mean, obviously, I haven't seen like this. Like, I have seen this. I have seen the difference between having a 3300 milliamp hour battery with the V30 and a 3000 milliamp hour battery on the G7. I do indeed notice it. It's just not something that makes me say, oh, this phone is crap or anything like that. Because a lot of that I could also chalk up to me having the phone at max brightness too. So I can't necessarily be like, oh, this phone is crap. Next, notch versus no notch. As I said in my Note 8 video, I don't necessarily know. I don't notice the notch pretty much. And if I do notice it, I'm like, oh, it's there, whatever. You can turn it off and you can make it so it gets turned off in settings. But say on your YouTube video or anything like that, it doesn't do what the it's that fucking phone, the iPhone 10. I don't know why I can think of the iPhone of all phones, but it doesn't do what the iPhone does, and makes it so that the video doesn't make it so the video bleeds into your notch. Beyond the notch, it stays in this 16:9 state. So that's something that I do like a lot, so that it doesn't like look weird. It's just something that's very nice and something I like a lot. It also doesn't do that with games either. It's just something that I've noticed. And it's something that a lot of reviewers aren't even really talking about. They just say, ew, notch, and go right by it. Or say, oh, I'm not bothered by it. And just go right past it. Next, I want to talk about screen brightness. Now, obviously, I'm using a brighter wallpaper on the G7 and a darker wallpaper on the V30. But what I can do is I can go to these exact pictures in my gallery, if I can find them. Oh, yes, indeed. So there. V30 G7. Obviously, you can tell that's the G7 because notch. But, from what I can tell by just looking at it straight on, the G7 has more of a natural color reproduction. The red looks as red as the dress actually looks in game or in this portrait. Whereas this looks more orangey and less red to me, honestly. The backgrounds look as they do, I guess. I can't necessarily say. This looks more like yellowish, as if sun is reflecting off of it. This looks more bluish, like it's more clear, like it's just a blue clear sky or whatever. And that could be chalked up to the color the temperature of the displays themselves. This could be a warmer display. This is obviously a cooler display, hence why it has a blue shift, which is something a lot of people complained about when the V30 came out. It sparked a bunch of controversy, but that's all I'm going to talk about when it comes to that. I will say that there's no light bleed at like any border of the display on the G7. If the Note 8 will focus, like there's no sense of light bleed anywhere. And it's just very nice that that's the thing. But overall, when it comes to screen brightness, I will have to give it to the G7 because it does indeed get brighter. Like, especially if you do the boosted brightness mode, it gets brighter. And overall, neither are hard to see in sunlight, but the G7 ekes out more light that much more, to where I can be like, if I need to look at something while in sunlight, in direct sunlight, I'm getting my G7 out. And I really hope they do this with the V30 somehow. If they can't because it's OLED, fine. But what I really do want is this boombox speaker on the V40. I do want that a lot. That's something that they really should do. What else? Both are mil standard A10G compliant. Both. So drop tests and all that stuff. You don't necessarily have to worry about dropping your phone. But obviously, as you guys know, I did shatter my back glass on my V30. But that was to getting it hitting something at work, not necessarily to it dropping. And as you guys can see, the back glass is completely fine, aside from like scratches from like the shards of the glass that came from the lens itself. I will say it is noticeable. This being an LCD display is indeed noticeable, because I do see the backlight pop out in darker environments. You can see it get a little, you can see the backlight, but it's not something that bothers me because I know it's an LCD. Like, come on now. When you know your phone is using an LCD, why is seeing the backlight a problem? Just like with OLED, if you know you'll have some color shifting problems with OLED, or you know you'll have screen burn-in with OLED, why is it that big of a problem? Like, come on now. But one thing that LCDs are more susceptible to is dead pixels. And I will indeed report on that, like I did with screen burn-in or like intense color shift on the V30. I will do that as well. Other than that, like I said, battery life is pretty good. Performance overall has been good. Has been great. You can't necessarily say that. I can't say that, oh, performance is leaps and bounds better, because the Snapdragon 835 is still a great chip. I don't know why people are like, oh, it's not the 845 though. Like, it's not that big of a performance gain unless you are a gamer and you want to play stuff with better quality graphics, I guess. But even then, not many games support the newest the new Adreno GPU and stuff like that. So it doesn't really bother me that this has a Snapdragon 845. It still performs well. I just have to break this phone in a bit more to see how well it will fare against something like the V30 when it comes to performance. I haven't had any sort of lag or anything on my V30 yet. I've only really had lag and stutter on this when I'm downloading a shit ton of apps. So that's something that every phone is prone to, so don't hold that against it. And I won't hold it against it, but that's it, though. Let me know what you guys think of this. This is just a comparison. I'm not going to say one is better than the other yet, because I've only had this for 2 days. So I will have a complete versus video later on down the line. Probably closer to my review of the G7. But let me know what you guys think of this. Do you have the V30? Let me know what else you guys want to know about how this fares compared to the V30. In the comment section below. This is Sparta. Thank you guys for watching. Thanks for the support. Hope you guys have a wonderful Wednesday or whatever time of day it is in your area. Have a good one. If you liked this video, like it. If you disliked it, dislike it. Share this video with anyone that's interested. What else? Hit the subscribe button if you're new, and hit the notification bell icon if you want to know whenever I upload a new video. Thanks for 470 subscribers. I'm 30 away from 500. I really want to get to that point. And again, have a good one.